So the 6 Italian producers we are going to show, they will give us the opportunity to travel around Italy. There is a lot of Tuscany today. Actually, it's all from Tuscany, but different side of this beautiful region. We are going to present, first of all, Villa Mangiacane, who is a producer located in Chianti Classico area. Next, we are going following the tasting with the Banfi wines. So we are in Montalcino. Again, Argiano. And we are going in the end with the last 3 producers on the Tuscany coast. So starting from the south of Maremma Toscana in Capalbio, in province of Grosseto, with Tenuta Monteti. Then we move into La Fralluca, young producers making wines in Suvereto, which is still in Livorno area. In the end, we are going to close our virtual tasting with Michele Satta, one of the pioneers in Bolgheri area. So I would like to give you again the welcome to everyone, and I am really happy to start this virtual tasting. Connected with us, there are professionals from New York, from Sofia Wine Bar. There is a really good team, and Alessandra Rocchi is starting to pour the wines for all of them. I will be happy to share the details with all of you, with all the producers later of the professional who joined us. So the first producers we are going to present is Villa Mangiacane. Connected with us, there is Antonio Spurio. Hello, Antonio. You can also open your microphone. I will say just 2 words on Villa Mangiacane, who is this beautiful winery that took the name from the Latin Magna Canes. So it means actually the big dogs who were there to protect the beautiful villa. We are in San Casciano in Val di Pesa, in Florence area, of course, in the northern part of the Chianti Classico. Today we are going to present 2 of your wines. They are the Chianti Classico 18 vintage and the Chianti Classico Riserva 2017.
Yes, good morning to everyone. Morning for you, evening for us. And with me, you can see Margherita.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Is the new sales manager, and I'm the winemaker. So we are the team I produce and she sells the wine. But to describe the wine, she wants to have me here with the Raffaele's company to introduce our wine. As you know, Raffaele said Villa Mangiacane is a really beautiful villa not far from Florence, just 12 kilometers in the south part. And we are in the most north part of the Chianti Classico area. The estate is around 300 hectares totally. And of this 340 hectares is in vineyard. The major part of the vineyard is Sangiovese, but we cultivate also all the Tuscany grape variety like Colorino, Canaiolo, Malvasia Nera, and etc. In the first wine, the vintage 2018, you can see the Chianti Classico Annata, and in this wine you can find 85% Sangiovese, 10% Canaiolo, and 5% Colorino. It's really typical blending for typical Chianti Classico. So if you have the wine in the glasses, we can taste together. You can see for the first thing, the first sensation is the color. You can see the magnificent Sangiovese color, because it's not really dark, but it's brilliant, and you can see between the wine. It's not come si dice, non impenetrabile. It's not too much dark. It's typical for Sangiovese. On the nose, you can taste the typical flavor for Sangiovese. That means violet. Aiutami, che ho il microfono.
Cloves. Yeah, sorry. And red berries, cherries, and wild berries.
You can taste the terroir on this wine because I said before, we are in the north part of Chianti Classico. That means the soil is, the origin of the soil is alluvial. That means the soil is so rich in clay and deeper. The vines can find the roots can go really deeper in the soil and can explore can find all the. Please, Raffaele.
Can you hear us?
Raffaele?
See, no, nothing, Antonio. I'm not hearing you really well. I don't know if all the professionals are hearing well, or it's just my problem from here, from Arezzo.
I can hear in New York.
Okay. Are you okay? All good?
Oh, it's okay.
But okay.
All good.
Otherwise,
Okay.
if you have some
Thank you.
question about, we can answer like afterwards.
Okay, thank you very much, Margherita, and sorry. So yes, what's happened, Antonio, making a question on the 18 vintage. I like for the purity of the fruit, it was actually a gentle vintage. There is character. And, you know, for some journalists, they thought it was a vintage a little bit fragile. From your point of view, what do you think about the 18 vintage? What we need to expect in the next 5-10 years?
Good question, because as you know, we chose the grapes we identified the right grapes to make the singular wine. That means for Chianti Classico Annata, we used the normal grapes, for Reserva top grapes, and Gran Selezione the cru grapes. That's true. It's fragile for the normal grapes. I don't know if I can explain in the right way, but we can. The wine, the vintage is fresh, is straight, but is at the same time is fat on the mouth. But I think is right now in the second phases. So it's at this time is at the plateau, but I think this plateau can during maximum 2-3 years, not more. In Reserva, 2008, we made the blend right 2 weeks ago for the new vintage, and the Reserva 2008 is completely different because we know where is the right vineyard to make this kind of wine. So it depends vineyard by vineyard, as you know.
Right.
Okay. For the second
thank
wine,
you very much. Second wine is your Reserva 2017. So it will be interesting to see two completely different vintage side by side.
yes. The vintage 2017 was a difficult vintage for the summertime because it's really hot. But I said before, if you have a different exposition of the hill, we have a different place where we can have a different vineyard in the east part, in the southeast part, a different level of exposition and altitude. We can find the right place to pick in the grapes to make a wine like this. And for this reason, you can find on the glasses a very beautiful wine. It's very rich in perfume, very powerful, and very longer. I love this wine, this Reserva.
And I don't know if Antonio mentioned, sorry in case he did, this is a 100% Sangiovese.
Tasting the wines, Antonio, it's quite deeper maybe next to the previous one. I like also this perception of a small bitterness character in the end, which is sometimes really well connected to the Sangiovese soul of the territory. And I think it's well done. It shows personality, character. I don't know if there is some professional wants already say something on these two wines we tasted. This is the only winery and the only producers we are showing today from Chianti Classico. I think it will be not easy so fast to ask to Alessandra now to switch on the microphone, but we can keep. Eccola. Hi Ale, if there is already some question from you and your beautiful traders, we tasted the wines from Chianti Classico area. If there are some comments on the two wines, so we showed the 18 vintage and the 17 vintage.
Abbiamo seguito, grazie mille Raffa. Si sente bene l'audio, so we are super happy for that. The table is full, how you can see, and we started with a great beginning, I will say. Over here, there are just 11 in the morning, but our professionals, already appreciate the wine. So thanks for also the explanation and the details. Till now, it seems we are not questioned, but I'll be back to you soon if there are in the room.
Okay.
There's maybe, sorry, Raffaele, for interrupting. There's something that we can add just to give a little, to add a little bit of value, that the Villa Mangiacane is now converting to organic farming. Of course, we cannot put the label on the bottles because, as you know, everybody knows you need like a few years. But that's our, the path and the lead that we are actually following, like converting to a completely 100% organic cultivation of the grapes.
Okay, thank you very much, Margherita and Antonio. If you want to stay with us, we are going to move to the next producers and
just ask one little question.
Hi, Joel. Yes, please.
Yes.
I just, something that they were doing at the Anteprima in years past, because here we were just discussing where they're located closer to Florence. Mm-hmm. There was a push of trying to give more value to the individual villages and talk about Greve, Rade, San Cassiano, Gaiole. Do you think that has a future, or is that too confusing for consumers in New York, in Florida, or much less in Tokyo or in Rio de Janeiro?
There are a lot of big investors in this area, and I think in really few years we became famous like Greve.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not easy to identify Chianti Classico in San Casciano, I know, but I think our job is really important in this way. I'm in Villa Mangiacane from 1 year and a half, and I came from 20 years experience. So I can use my come si dice, i miei precetti.
Senza precetti.
È quello che ho imparato da Carlo Ferrini.
Ah, okay. What I learned.
What you learned.
Well, I can use what I learned by my teacher. My teacher was Carlo Ferrini. It's a famous winemaker in Italy, but not only in Italy. And I tasted the big difference from the wines now and the wines before, the vintage before.
And even the consortium of Chianti Classico is more and more giving importance to the different area of the Chianti Classico. So I think we can say that, for like our side is what you said is still valid. I know that maybe for someone who is not very knowledgeable in terms of Tuscany or the territory can be hard to understand, but definitely, even as I said before, the Consorzio is going towards this direction to make people understand that there are differences between, like when you say Chianti Classico is not everywhere the same.
Le oga sono importanti anche.
Yeah, that's what they call uga, UGA. Yeah, that's what they call. Yeah, and then they're investing a lot. And then we recently had in Florence an event about Chianti Classico, and all the producers were precisely divided from the area where they actually come from. So. Yeah.
Well, it's just for me, I came back from Burgundy yesterday, and when I look at this, the logical conclusion would be, I mean, if that is what the Consorzio really wants, that in 25 years, nobody writes Chianti Classico on the label any longer, but they write only Greve or San Cassiano or Gaiole or Rada or Castellana. That may happen if we bring those to the point that they're as well known as Chambol-Musigny or Von Romane or Pomard.
Yeah, I think I think that's this is like, I don't know if the perception that we have. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that's a perception we have, definitely. The problem is, you always have to. It depends the people that you have in front, because the general customer maybe doesn't know it's Chianti for him. It doesn't even know the difference. The differences between Chianti and Chianti Classico. So it's part of everybody's job, I think, to make people understand that there are like many differences.
Okay, thank you very much, Joel. Thank you very much.
This winery imported in New York? Sorry, this winery is important in New York?
No.
As an import?
Not yet.
Actually, no.
Not yet.
Okay, we will find it.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandra. So let's move tasting another producers. Once thanks again to Margherita and Antonio. Now we are going to taste Banfi. Connected with us, there is Igor. Igor, could you tell us more about the Banfi history? Of course, starting in a quickly way, talking about also the Mariani family and the incredible job they did it in the last 30 years.
Yeah, ciao Raffaele, very nice to be here with you Igor. Once again. So Banfi is a family business since the beginning, as you say. It's run by the same family, Mariani, which is an Italian-American family that went to New York many years ago and starting an importing wine company in New York, which is still existing. And of course, is the Banfi importers called Banfi Vintners. Then, by selling Lambrusco for many years, they were able to come back to Italy and purchase a big area in Montalcino, which is actually the same land we have today, about 3,000 hectares, a little less. And 1/3 of this big contiguous wine estate is vineyard. So we have about 900 hectares of vineyards in Montalcino. So in the 70s, Montalcino was not that famous as it is today. So Banfi was pushing a lot in the production and in a lot of innovative ways of thinking Brunello, introducing pioneer agriculture and winemaking as well by studying the soils, the clones of Sangiovese. Is a long story about research. And thanks to Banfi, and for us, thanks to Brunello, we became both very famous all over the world. So at that time, Brunello di Montalcino was not that famous as it is today, but we were maybe the first to spread the verb Brunello all around the world. So now Banfi is in 92 countries in the world, and luckily also Brunello became one of the most important Italian appellations actually. So the 250 producers existing today are average, very high quality products producing all over the appellation Montalcino. And maybe a little bit of this is also thanks to Banfi, that was firmly believing in Brunello since the 70s. So Mariani family were so proud, I would say, and smart to introduce something new and to base everything on research, because, you know, coming from America to Montalcino at that time, we were seen as something weird from the local inhabitants, of course, and they were, I don't know, a little bit scared about our presence there. But thanks to Banfi, we increased a lot of the way of producing Brunello by introducing new concepts in agriculture, especially, which are still running today. And for the first wines we are explaining now, they are definitely the key reason for producing Vigna Marucchetto Brunello di Montalcino. So we were studying Sangiovese clones for the first time in Italy, individuate all of them existing and micro-vinify all of them for more than 10 years in a row. We were introducing the concept of zonation by dividing the land in zones, and every zone is still today picked, fermented, and aged separately until the bottling. So the basic Banfi Brunello is, the Brunello Castello Banfi is based on more than 20 different kinds of zones, which are made separately, like a constellations of single vineyards, and then blended in the bottle just before release the wine. So these concepts, together with a very ethical way of producing wine, which is sustainability since the beginning, were once again the smart vision of the Mariani family. So we based everything on the concept that each action must be socially fair, environmentally safe, and economically feasible. So we were officially certified since the end of the 90s, and now we are Equalitas certified as an official certification for sustainability, internationally approved. So the two wines we are presenting today are definitely the youngest and the oldest, and the only two actual single vineyards that we produce as Brunello di Montalcino in the company. So the first one is called Vigna Marucchetto, and is the final result of all of the concepts I was talking about that we based the company on. So first of all, zonations. Vigna Marucchetto is a toponym, is an actual name of a geographical area, which is since 2016 vintage, identified as a real and official toponym of the Brunello di Montalcino area, like it was happening in Burgundy, as Joel was mentioning just a few minutes ago. So Vigna Marucchetto is definitely recognized as a toponym of Brunello di Montalcino, like it happens in the Barolo area a few years ago with the Manzione Geographica Tipica. So,
but Igor, sorry, could you tell us more about the characteristic of the soil?
Yeah, of course.
Of Vigna Marucchetto.
Yeah, Vigna Marucchetto is based on 3 different kinds of soils, and that it was making very different this area. So we have about 10 hectares in total, divided in 3 something, 1 and 5. So 3 little zones into the big vineyards. And the first is, let's say, very brown with a sandy matrix, yellowish to brown and reddish color, very clay. The second one is more, let's say, stony with small rocks, which is giving more, let's say, drying soils and very dry, avoiding humidity and whatever. And the third one is heterogeneous with a lot of fluvial and marine residuals, with a lot of also, I would say, fossils in a very weird area, because Montalcino many centuries ago, I would say thousands years ago, millions years ago, was under the ocean. Indeed, we found the bones of a whale in our territory. You will know because you came there. So Vigna Marucchetto is actually the blend of 3 different kinds of soils, giving to the wine a special characteristics. So you will ask me, why Vigna Marucchetto? So why did we identify this as to be the toponym and the special single vineyard produced 2 years ago for the first time, released 2 years ago for the first time? Because since the beginning, the grapes coming from these 3 little micro areas were absolutely stunning. So you were just looking in the vineyards how healthy and beauty and absolutely great and luxurious and fantastic all of the grapes were, that all of a sudden we decided that to start producing that zone as a single vineyard, we should have analyzed and tried to keep constancy of production in that area. And so year by year, Vigna Marcheto was always given the best quality grapes ever in our vineyards. So when we launched in 2016, so the one you're tasting now is the second release.
Second vintage.
We were so happy to start launching a new single vineyard in a 5-star vintage, 2016, while the one you're tasting now is 17, which is completely different. So it was a kind of an experiment for us. So coming from something perfect to something very dry and hot, like the 17, as you well know. So the differences were in both cases a kind of very peculiar style of the vineyards, but with super healthy and super high quality grapes for both. So the superpower of this micro area is to give power with high sugar content, very nice phenolic maturations, and at the same time, fresh and brilliant acidity due to the compositions of the free soils. So in the end, Vigna Marcheto is definitely a very complex Brunello di Montalcino with a very savory and texture, and the tannins, which are usually very harsh in Brunello, tends to be a little softer and rounder than a medium average Brunello di Montalcino, with some, I would say, traditional and developed aromas, especially on the nose of mocha, of licorice, of leather, little tobacco, but with a nice fruity texture, also with a nice base of cherries, or black cherries, or also it can be black currants. So it's a very voluptuous wine. What we decided to do is to age this wine only in big casks, 60 and 90 hectoliters, to not give any oak influence to the wine, but just a kind of gently micro oxidation in order to develop and to widen the range of aromas in Vigna Marcheto. So it's a style which is not modern, but very close to the traditional Brunello di Montalcino.
How big are the casks?
The casks are 60 and 90 hectoliters, and they are
really, really big.
Yeah, they're really big. They are French oak or Slavonian oak, both. Now we are experimenting something new, but it's always a big relationship between wine and wood for the wine. So we never want the wines to be covered by any oakness.
Okay, thank you very much, Igor. Tasting the wines side by side, it's really impressive how is dark and spicy the Vigna Marcheto in 2017 vintages. I mean, it is really different since what we tasted the 16 vintage. I really liked this combination, according to me, of violets and cloves, licorice, like you said. In the other side by side with the Poggio Alloro Riserva 2050, you can have the perception of the ripe character, but really beautiful and well interpreted, which is well combined also with the floral character, which I always like it. So, I mean, both wines are really interesting, and the passion of what you do, and you are able also to transmit with these two wines that we are tasting. It's really, really important.
You are very good taster. You're an expert taster, Rafael, because I was exactly mentioning what you said about Poggio Alloro, which is a little bit more traditional with some violet and dry fruits characteristics, especially on the nose. And the texture is once again very soft, not that harsh, but incredibly wide range of aromas. So it's our icon wines. It's produced since 85.
Absolutely.
It's another toponym of the appellation, of course, but it's the first real single vineyard ever produced by Banfi in Montalcino.
Thank you very much to have decided this combination, because actually it's really interesting. One of the youngest labels you created in the last years, and the other one is for sure the emblematic estate of the winery. So thank you very much, Igor. I think also our professional tasted the wines. like always, if there are questions for Igor, he will be happy to answer us. I hope so, Igor.
Of course I
am.
Question: does Banfi plan on producing this single vineyard, doesn't it, every vintage, or is this something that you're gonna reassess depending on the vintage quality?
That's a very good question, actually. Indeed, with the Poggio all'Oro, the second wine, we produced only 15 times in 37 years. So only when, not the vintage, but the characteristics of the grapes from the single vineyard are exceptional, not good, more. So for the Vigna Marucchetto, luckily, we went through two different characteristics. So a very perfect and mild 2016, and a very dry and hot 2017. So it was a challenge in the beginning, but now we are planning, as you say, to just study how they are developing in the future, and maybe to not release the wine every year. It will depend, of course, on the characteristics or the micro characteristics of both weather and grapes condition. So luckily it's a place where every year they are absolutely stunning, but it doesn't mean that we are going to produce every time. We'll see.
Ciao, Igor.
Yeah.
How many bottles of the Riserva 2015 did you produce?
So we produce a little less than 20,000 bottles of the Poggio all'Oro and 12,000 bottles of Vigna Marucchetto. So both wines you're tasting now are very niche with very limited production. So if you think that we are selling wines more or less all over the world, and you divide the amount of bottles for the 90 countries we are selling to, it's a very, very limited edition for every single country, unfortunately. But it wouldn't be a single vineyard if we do produce tons, of course.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for the question. I would like to introduce Elena, who is connected from Miami. Elena, if you are there, hi, hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
I'm fine, thank you very much. And I will be really happy to hear more about you and your project in Miami, but not only.
Okay, Jeremy will explain you better than me the project because he's his baby.
Hi, how are you? My name is Jeremy Waxman. Pleasure to meet you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to tell you what we've been working on. You know, as I'm sure everyone's aware, online liquor sales have been exploding, and COVID has certainly fast-tracked that. So we know a lot of producers are looking at different ways to participate in that model, whether it be, you know, working through their importers and distributors to try to forge a relationship with existing online retailers, liquor retailers, or other means. So what some of the drawbacks, you know, in that model are when you're putting your label on an existing retailer site, you're sort of, you know, you as the producer are not capturing a lot of the essential information which is valuable. You know, who is your customer? What are the demographics? You know, how many page views you're getting? You know, the online retailer is capturing that. So, and you're also at their discretion as to where they put your label, how many other similar labelers are on the website, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've done is we're collaborating with the company that's done something very interesting. They have a network of retailers, so they're able to distribute to 40 states in the United States, and they have importers and distributors. And what they do is they allow the producer to create their own online presence. And essentially, in the eyes of the public, they're buying from the producer. So the producer can create their own website. The producer can have their own online store. The customer feels like they're interacting with the producer, not a third-party retailer. The importer and the distributor and the retailer are needed to be compliant, but they're invisible, if you know what I mean. So what the consumer sees is the label and the message the label wants to send to their consumer. So it's very interesting. It allows now the producer to send the message as they want, promotes the wines that they want, capture the data on their customer. Where does the customer live? What's the age? what's the demographic, which will then help them to further promote strategically in the United States market. So these guys have very cleverly figured out, they're almost like, for lack of a better word, they're like a private label retailer. So the winery is what stands out. It's not Wine Chateau or Vivino Unlimited, it's XYZ producer. When the consumer goes to the website of the producer and makes a purchase, they get a confirmation back from the producer. Now, all the disclaimer language is there because, as you know, it still has to be imported by a US importer and then go to a distributor and then a retailer. All that's happening behind the scenes, but the customer is not seeing that. So it's a really compelling way for wineries to take control of their message and can take control of their online destiny. What's nice is once a producer decides to engage in this network, if they don't have an importer in the United States, the importer in this network will become their importer. We have a distributor that'll be their distributor, and again, the retailer is the one fulfilling. So whether a producer already has a US importer, we can still work with them, or if they do not have a US importer yet, we can plug them in through this network. So essentially, the producer is responsible for creating their website, or we could help them do that. But essentially, they can put the message out that they want. They can create the budget that they want to market their website, and the rest of it is basically seamless. The retailer that's doing the fulfillment, they're currently doing about $100 million a year for various brands, not just wines, but spirits. The same model, where they're essentially providing the backbone, for lack of a better word, to allow producers to sell directly to the United States compliantly. They also have a large retail presence. So what's very nice is we've seen situations where someone starts out as an online client, and the owner, the principals of the retailer, like the label, like the price point, they're also going to start buying and putting on the shelf of their physical locations. They've got 30 locations and growing rapidly. So it's a great opportunity not only to get an online presence, but potentially get a brick and mortar, shelf presence.
Jeremy,
so,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to start to show us the project. I'm pretty sure we can go deep in the details also. I'm really happy to present our producers we connected today, but we are going to have the opportunity maybe to have more questions for you in the end. And if you are happy, you can give us more details.
Absolutely, at your convenience. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeremy, and happy to see you again, Elena. Are you tasting the wines with us, no?
Yes,
so there are interesting things. And now we still are tasting again Montalcino in the same actually southwest part, because Argiano is the other producers we are going to taste. It's really close in the geographic territory with the Banfi that we just tasted, but they are showing two different wines today, not their Rosso di Montalcino or Brunello, but their international grapes varieties. So we are going to present the Non Confunditur and the Solengo. Connected with us, there is Riccardo Boggi. I would like from you hearing the history of Argiano, and what do you think of this 2019 vintage?
Ciao Raffaele, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. And as always, it's a pleasure to be connected. So yes, the choice for this webinar has been to take the two IGT wines that we produce. So everybody knows the Brunello, everybody knows the Rosso, but I'm just kidding. The thing is, we wanted to present a beautiful vintage for both wines, the 2019. For wines that usually are not always tasted, and that's why we wanted to spend a few words on these two wines. So the NC 2019 and the Solengo 2019. We are, as you said, neighbors of Banfi. So we are in the southwest of Montalcino. So this big hill in the southwest, we are not far from the sea, which is about 30-40 kilometers straight away from us. And so we are strongly influenced by the sea winds and the sea breezes. We don't have much humidity. We have usually higher medium temperatures compared to the north side of Montalcino. And this, of course, can be a good or a bad thing based on the weather condition, based on the different vintages. I would say that we have a lot of sun, a lot of breeze. So it's not easy, fortunately, for us to have diseases in our vineyards. We have a lot of sun, so we also have to protect the grapes from the sun, but we kind of know how to manage that. Argiano is quite old winery. We produce wine since almost 500 years. Of course, back then, the wine production was totally different. We joined the production of Brunello at the beginning of the last century. So we have quite a good experience. And we are on a single parcel estate, 300 meters above the sea level, soils rich in limestone, in clay. We have some alluvial and magmatic soil. And we produce mostly Sangiovese for the Rosso, for Brunello, for our Reserva or single vineyard. But we also make some wines that are totally away from the tradition of Montalcino. So everything started because we had, as a winemaker consultant, Giacomo Takis, one of the greatest winemakers we have ever had in Italy. And when he arrived to Argiano, he said, okay, you are an historical producer, but do you want to be provocative? Do you want to make something new? And we say, of course, yes. So what do you suggest? So he suggested to plant Cabernet Sauvignon, to plant Merlot, to plant Petit Verdot. And this is how everything started, with varietals that usually do not belong to Montalcino or to Tuscany area. So we started with the Solengo, which literally means old, lonely male wild boar. So it's a slang used by the hunters in the area. And we choose this name because this was a wine that at the beginning it was quite aggressive, quite big and strong, but it was away from the rest of the pack. So we started the Solengo with Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot, Merlot, a little bit of Sangiovese. And after a few years, we decided to also make another wine, a more accessible wine, and we call it NC, non confunditur, which is the motto of the family, the previous family that owned Argiano, which means to not be confused. So it was a very eccentric and unique family, and they had this motto, and we decided to use it also for our wine. So starting with the NC, which is a blend of 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25 Merlot, 25 Sangiovese, is a wine that is enjoyable, is a fun wine. So you open, you drink it, you enjoy it. You don't have to overthink too much when you drink this wine. We have the strong character and structure of the Cabernet Sauvignon, but the Merlot helps to have it smoother, so to have it refined. And the Sangiovese always keeps the Tuscan touch, the good acidity, the good freshness that is a great characteristic for the majority of the Tuscan wines, especially when we talk about Sangiovese. The wine is also aged for very few months, 5 to 6 months in used barriques. And we want a wine that is for every day, for barbecue, to drink it at home, to use it by the glass. So we want to have fun with this wine. And we never want to have a big and strong structure. We prefer to remain with a medium body, to have a lot of blackberries, black fruits, with some spices coming from the aging. But again, we want a wine that has drinkability. So we want energy, drinkability, and a wine that has to be very gastronomic. So you match it with some savory and fatty food, and you're just happy. And this is the NC. On the other hand, we have the older brother, so the Solengo. And
Riccardo, before to talk of Solengo, are you agree with non-confunditor? If we need to find one word, the first thing I think it's juiciness. It's something that really you want to mordere, you want really crunch instead of just drink, because there is this kind of salivation that make you the idea to come back really fast. It's beautiful because it's well combined, the Cabernet Sauvignon with Merlot, like you say. But I really think the percentage of Sangiovese will give that part of juiciness,
and
the crunchiness. Really, really interesting. That for sure, if you want, we can stay here to talk about wines for minutes and hours. But I'm sure you will finish the bottle before the conversation. That's the idea. It's well centered. So
thank you,
congratulations.
Raffaele. You really got the point, because when I say that we want drinkability, we want that. We want the wine. Maybe you don't have to overthink too much about the wine, but you want to finish the bottle. You want to drink it, you want to enjoy. You don't want to get tired of a wine that can be maybe too big, too strong, and overripe. We prefer to do the harvest earlier than expected, because we want to maintain this minerality, these wet stones that comes mostly from the Sangiovese grape varietal. So the crunchiness and the juiciness is exactly what we are looking for when we make this wine. So you got the point. I owe you a bottle. And
let's taste the beautiful Solengo.
So Solengo, we totally changed the profile. For the Solengo, instead, we select vineyards that are usually on lighter soils. We have more sandy soil, gravel, round stone, so we have drainage of water. We want more concentration, more body, more structure, to have a wine that can reach higher complexity and higher elegance compared to the NC. So the Solengo is a blend, the 2019, of again 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, but I would say more concentrated and a better selection, suitable for this long potential aging wine. We have 25% of Petit Verdot. That is, it sounds to be a lot of Petit Verdot, but for this varietal, we need one thing: we need a good maturation. If the Petit Verdot is not ripe enough, it's going to be totally green with aggressive and grippy tannins, and very like veggie and green flavors. Petit Verdot with the sun, with the right maturation, is a wine that gives structure, gives deepness, complexity, dark color, and refined tannins. On the other hand, we also have a 20% of Merlot that always helps to have the blanket on, and just a 5% of Sangiovese that I ironically say that is like the Parmigiano on the pasta, is the final touch that completes the wine. But before to make the blends, we always do many tasting in the cellars, because while for the Brunello, we have what the nature is giving to us. So terroir wines. On the Solengo, we also have the possibility to do different tastes, different blends, using different percentages. And by doing that, we are able to try to accomplish the goal that we have. So to have a wine that is juicy, is structured, is elegant, but at the same time, we want to have a long aging potential. And that's why also for this wine, we spend about 18 months in French oak, in barriques, half new and half second passage. So when the fruit is beautiful, we don't have to use too much new oak. We don't want to hide the characteristic of the wine. And simple as that, we have a wine that now when you drink it young, usually you need some a steak or some, again, a juicy and fatty foods. But if you're able to wait for 5, 10, 50, 20 years, you can have a wine that shows a lot of tertiary notes, eucalyptus, a lot of herbal and balsamic flavors. And the last few things about the vintage. 2019, in Tuscany, it has been generous. So it's a vintage when we had a lot of fruits with a great maturation profile. So sometimes it happens to have these great vintages when the technological and phenolic maturations are aligned. So we are happy to do the harvest. We have this big difference in temperatures between the day and night, especially in the last month and a half of the maturation. And this helps to increase the complexity of the wine. So 2019 is very similar to the 2016 in terms of weather conditions. And when we have a vintage like this, it's just fun to make wine. Compare maybe to when we have more difficult vintages like the 2017 or 2014, when we have extreme weather conditions. So 2019, I strongly believe there is going to be a memorable vintage almost everywhere. I will not say only in Tuscany, but in many other regions. And yeah, this is it. NC and Solengo, NC drinkability, energy, juiciness, Solengo structure, complexity, and aging potential. So I try to summarize everything in very few minutes, but you have to come and visit the winery. Beautiful 16th century villa, recently restored. So we wait for you in Tuscany.
And you did it, and you did it really well. Thank you very much, Riccardo. Do you agree saying that maybe we are going to see another challenge with the 2015 and 16 vintage, and maybe we are going to see more or less the same things against the 19 vintage, against the 2020?
Yes, totally
so
agree.
Should be a little bit powerful, the 2020, but the elegance and the balance that we are having on the approach of the 2019, it's similar to the 16.
Yes,
like you say.
2019, extremely elegant. This is the characteristic. So it's a complete vintage. 2020, a little bit warmer, so like the 2015. So we expect to have a little bit more structure, fruit that are a little bit riper, but at the same time, it's still a great vintage. I always say that 19 and 20 are like 16 and 15 is like choosing between driving a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. So any choice should be good enough.
It's always good.
So, exactly.
Riccardo, two questions. One is, what is for you the adjective that you can give to this wine? If I told you juiciness for the non-confunditor, what is the first word you think when you taste Solengo 19?
I would say complexity, and I will also add potential, because now that the wine is young, because it's full of blackberries, you have the spices, the toffee flavors. At the same time, if you wait a little bit, you start to have beautiful tertiary aromas. So you have the complexity, but you still have a potential that is quite hidden. So if you wait, you will not regret that. But complexity will be the objective.
A question from our professional there in Sofia Wine Bar. Argiano wines have superlative quality price balance. Since the new ownership, what has changed on this point of view?
In terms of quality and balance, with the new ownership, so we changed the owner in end of 2012. So a Brazilian banker arrived to Tuscany. Everybody was afraid. What is going to happen now with the Brazilian? Actually, he arrived and say, well, I'm the new boss, I'm the new owner. I love wine, I love art, but I know nothing about winemaking production. So please make the best wine you can do, and I will drink them. So with that, we had a goal set already. So what was our goal? Is to do the best quality, but to do the best quality, first we had to analyze the soil. So we have done a huge research on the soil's characteristics to understand exactly what kind of a terroir and micro terroir we have. After that, we have restored the villa, we have restored the vinification and aging cellar. So now we try to respect the tradition, but we always do some experimentation. And what has changed is that we are maybe closer to the tradition compared to what we were doing in the 90s or in the early 2000s. So we made a step back, but with more knowledge compared to the past.
Thank you very much, Riccardo. I know you have to jump in another conversation, in another virtual tasting, so feel free to go and to say bye to our professional. I'm happy to tell you more when we finish about their comments and their question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Raffaele,
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Riccardo. Raffaele, just one question really quick. They're a little bit shy, but the feedback on the wine was great. So the importer now in New York for the Argiano wines, who is it?
So we are imported by Lux Wines. and they are going to change the name of the company to Maize Row. So it's a division of AJ Gallo. So it's a limited portfolio with 7-8 Italian brands, Ratti in Piemonte, Allegrini Veneto, Tornatore in Sicily, etc. So, perfect. And we are distributed by Empire in New York State.
Perfect, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Riccardo. Thank you, and congratulations for the wines. So the next producers we are going to taste is Tenuta Monteti. It's first time for them participating in our virtual tasting. Tenuta Monteti, I had the pleasure to visit them some months ago. They are located in Capalbio, in Grosseto area, of course, on the Tuscan coast, in Maremma Toscana. The winery was established in 1998 from Gemma and Paolo Baratta. Today is well led by Eva and Javier, who is connected today with us. Javier, welcome.
Hello, many thanks, many thanks. Can you hear me, Raffaele?
Perfectly. They told us if you can just make the conversation with the highest volume of your voice will be better, because the room is really big in Sofia Wine Bar, but we can hear you really well.
No doubt. Okay, I'll do my best. So, hello, everyone. Yes, as Raffaele said, we are based in Capalbio, and Capalbio is in the far end of Tuscany, very, very close to the sea and very close to the Lazio region. So we are one of the last and more southern properties producing wine in Tuscany. And when we arrived here, that was 1998, no one was really betting on the Capalbio area for producing great reds. We were kind of pioneers here. And we decided that we were going to focus on the French varieties. As we understood, Sangiovese, we were too close to the sea and too far south to give the most of that variety. So we bet on the French varieties, mostly Bordeaux varieties, but not with the idea of imitating or following the Bordeaux formula. So our aim since the beginning was using these varieties because we were sure that they would grow fantastically well in this territory, but with the aim of producing very territorial wines. We planted 5 varieties. So Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot, Cabernet Franc, Alicante Bouschet, and Merlot. And we decided that we would just produce 2 red wines, the 2 wines you have here, the Caburnio and the Monteti. And after some years, in 2014, we added a 3rd label, our Rosé, always using the same varieties. So it's really, we decided to focus on these 3 labels because our idea was that there are basically 3 things that we would like to tell about our landscape. And these 3 things are represented in these 3 wines. So basically the Rosé that you see here with its beautiful color is a wine that obviously represents this closeness to the sea. So lots of minerality, lots of sapidity here. With Caburnio, we like to think about the Mediterranean scrub, those hills going down towards the sea. So we try to represent this freshness, this beautiful aromas of the Mediterranean vegetation. So freshness, immediacy. And with the Monteti, is the other label you are going to taste today, we look towards the hinterland, towards our woods and the big stones that we have plenty of them in the property. In fact, they are the symbol of the estate, these huge boulders that we discovered in the soil when we were planting. and that today we see them on the labels of the wines. So with this, we meant minerality, we meant depth of the woods that surround the property. Very important to say that Tenuta Monteti is, as we said, a family-owned estate that it's based on a small valley that belongs to our family. So we are completely surrounded by woods at 10 kilometers from the sea. The whole estate is 120 hectares and 28 of them are under vine. We planted them. Everything started from scratch. And in 2004, we built a very modern winery. By 2/3, it's underground, so you can hardly see it from outside, but it's a very functional, very modern, mostly. And the idea was to create a winery that would match perfectly those 28 hectares of vineyard. So it's kind of tailor-made. We have 28 fermenting vats for 28 hectares of vineyards. So each hectare of vineyard is a micro parcel in itself, and we always keep separate the produce of that hectare during the fermentation, vinification, and during the aging. And we start the process of blending the reds just after 1.5 years, 2 years after the harvest. So in the case of Caburnio, is the wine that I presume you are going to taste first. It's a blend of 3 varieties. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon, 55%. It's Alicante Bouschet, 30%, and Merlot, 25%. So clearly you see here that we have 2 basic wines of the Bordeaux blend, typical, the Cabernet Sauvignon and the Merlot, but there is this 30% of Alicante Bouschet, very important because that allows us to give the wine this beautiful freshness, to keep this acidity that in the Alicante Bouschet is better kept than in the other 2 varieties, in order to give this freshness that for us is so important to represent the closeness to the sea. This wine is very interesting, the way in which it is blended and vinified, because half of these micro parcels are kept in stainless steel vats for 1.5 years. At the same time, the other half would go downstairs to the barrique cellar. So we choose specifically which are the parcels that will be kept in the ground floor in steel, which are the most fruity, the most fresh, those that would not allow a contact with wood. So we try to preserve those feelings. At the same time, the other half, as soon as we see that there is much structure, we send them to the tonneau and the barrique, mostly from 2nd and 3rd use, but there is still some new oak there. After this 14, 16 months, we start the process of putting them together. It goes to cement to concrete for 3 months, and then it goes for at least one year in the bottle before the wine is released. Yes.
An adjective for these wines, Javier, I think it's really silky. When you put in your mouth, you really cannot think it came from a quite challenging vintage. The 17 was quite a warm vintage, a little bit even dry, I should say. But in this case, it's precise, it's silky, it's balanced, and it's still and already approachable. So what I say, when you play with all different variety that you are using in winery, this is a great job even to work on the percentage and in the blend. So the wines came from the vineyards. There is a great job in the vineyards, but I will say in this case, the 50% and 50%, because there is also really an artist behind this project. were really well played with this grape variety.
Well, thank you. Thanks a lot, Raffaele. It's really kind of you. I just can add that a secret of our winery is the fact that we don't have a basic wine. We just produce 2 reservas on their own right, Caburnio and Monteti, each one with its own style. And what would generally be the basic wine of the winery, we just sell them to other producers. We don't have enough energy to think about and to bottle a third label that is not up to the standards that we pretend for Tenuta Monteti. So in 2017 particularly, we diminished the quantity we bottled, both in Caburnio and in Monteti, and we increased the volumes of wine that we sold to other producers. So in order always to keep for ourselves just the best of the production.
Okay, and tasting the Tenuta Monteti 16, we can see, of course, some differences. I completely agree with you. There is no basic label in Tenuta Monteti project, but what really beat you is you can feel some breeze from the sea, which is not really far away. More or less, we are talking about 15 kilometers. But there is also the hills called Monteti, right?
Yes. It's the hill in front of us.
It will help a lot, because when we think, of course, the Maremma and Tuscany coast, you always think also a warm climate with a little bit more of humidity from the sea. But in this case, it's really well balanced, because there is a combination from the fresh air from the hills and, of course, the beautiful breeze from the sea. So the Tenuta Monteti 16 has a lots of complexity.
Yes. It's a completely different blend regarding the Caburnio. In this case, we have quite unusual. It's 45% of Petit Verdot. Then we have 30% of Cabernet Sauvignon and 25% of Cabernet Franc. So again, as our colleague from Montalcino mentioned before, Petit Verdot, when it ripens well, it offers a fantastic wine, and we have all the conditions that sometimes in Bordeaux you don't have to make the Petit Verdot ripen fully. And we decided so to produce this very strange blend, which is a kind of Bordeaux put upside down with this high percentage of Petit Verdot that gives this idea that we want to reflect of this depth, this beautiful minerality, and you can see that on the color. It's sometimes darker than the Caburnio, even if in this case, as we are tasting 2 different vintages, the 16, as we already said, was much more elegant than the 17. And you have this beautiful complexity. If you like to find words, I would say I find this wine intriguing because it keeps on
changing also,
changing and delivering new sensations, unexpected.
This is a really mysterious wine, intriguing. It's sometimes dark in the fruits, so there are black cherries, licorice, but there is much more. It brings you also in the small Mediterranean herbs, which characterize also the coast. And again, when you put in mouth, there is this kind of tannins that they are perfectly ripe, well combined. There is sapidity, which is another really nice characteristic of the wines. I don't like to talk of minerality, but for sure there is something in the soil that brings you this kind of energy. And so they are really exciting wines that we had the pleasure to taste. As you mentioned, there was also the rosé that actually for winescritic.com was one of the best, I think, in the first 3 positions, which is actually really interesting too. And nothing, there are some questions from our professional, if you want to add something more.
Just to say that the aging of this wine is different to Caburnio. In this case, the whole of it went to French barriques for 18 months, then 6 more months in concrete, and then 2 more years in the bottle. So most of those woods, of those barriques were new oak, 70%. But after all this long process, the concrete and 2 years in the bottle, we managed to deliver what we wanted, a wine in which you know that the wood was there, but it's not imposing the personality or the sense of the wood directly, but it's the wine who comes out of it.
Okay, thank you very much, Javier. Was precise your explication. I know there is some question from
Yes.
Sofia Weinbach.
Yes, we understood the great work behind the label. We just missed the grape of the Monteti, if we can repeat, please. And then our professionals were really curious about who is the winemaker and the type of agriculture that you're gonna do in the vineyard.
So the 3 varieties are Petit Verdot, 45%, Cabernet Sauvignon, 30%, and Cabernet Franc, 20%. Our consultant enologist is Carlo Ferrini. As you may know, one of the names, well-known names in Tuscany, has been with us since the very beginning. Since we were looking the piece of land, he was coming with us to discover this valley. So he's been with us for more than 25 years now, but he knows that when he comes to Tenuta Monteti, he is part of a team. He's a main part of the team, but he's part of it. So we take the decisions, mostly the decision of blending as a team work, in which, of course, Carlo and our resident enologist, Michela, and my wife, Eva, who is our director, and myself, we all take part. And regarding the agriculture, we are sustainable. We have the certification of the Ministry of the Environment for sustainable, not just agriculture, but sustainable winery as a whole. So this is something that we need to sit for every 2 years, and we have been recently given for the 4th consecutive time the certification of sustainable winery.
Thank you. How many bottles of each label you produce, and which is your most strong market?
Caburnio usually is 100,000 bottles, but in 2017 it was just 72,000 bottles. So we diminished by almost 30% the production. And in the case of Monteti, we usually produce 14,000 bottles.
Your main market?
Our main market is US, Canada, Europe in general, and Asia too. We export around 90% of the production. And in New York, we are imported by Wolfpack. That's the name of the importer. And some of you are in Miami. In Miami, we are represented by Vinaio Caprese, which is an Italian guy from the Isle of Capri, who imports our wines.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Javier, to be with us. And if you want to stay with us, we are going to taste the next 2 producers. Definitely. Otherwise, I will be happy to give you more feedback later.
Fantastic.
Thank you again. Grazie, Alessandra. So next producers is La Fralluca. I had the pleasure to taste their wines last year. in a beautiful blind taste of the wines from Suvereto. There is lots going on in Suvereto area, in Val di Cornia area. So finally they got it the consorzio. There are more or less around 20 producers, and La Fralluca beat us in the best way during this blind tasting, because they showed during this tasting their Syrah and their Cabernet Franc. We are tasting today, and really happy to have today Francesca and Luca. For this, the name of the winery is Fralluca.
Hello, can you hear me, everybody?
Perfectly.
Okay.
Hello,
yes.
And welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you all. And okay, Fralluca speaks a lot about us. It's the name of the winery. I mean, it's a joke. It's just a blend of our names. So Francesca is my wife, and Luca is me. And that explains how we start this project, this idea. We met in 1998 in completely different job area. So we were working in a clothes market. And when we met at that time, we discovered that we had a strong common passion for wine. Our dream was starting making wine in Tuscany. Francesca is from Pisa, so she's from Tuscany. And so at that time, we start looking for a piece of land where to plant and to start realizing our dreams. So it took around 3 years to find the right place. So Suvereto is not exactly a famous area. It's going to be, I hope. It was considered at that time like a hidden gem. And it's south from Bolgheri, around 40 kilometers. So the climate conditions are quite similar, not exactly the same, but not so far. And what we were looking for at that time was a piece of land where to produce white and red. So white in Tuscany is not really common, but was our first passion as wine consumers. So we were looking for that. And we traveled a lot around the Tuscan coast. And at the end, we found this place, which is maybe for this reason is a little bit far from the more traditional area in Suvereto. So it's a little bit more inland, it's higher up, has different soils. So you can imagine we are in the middle of nothing, surrounded only by forest and bushes and Mediterranean scrub. So we have no vineyards all around. We are, I think, the most north and inland, so east in the Suvereto area. This explains a lot about the territory we have here. So the soils that are, I think, just uncommon for the area. So more stony rich, with a lot of limestone. The night during all the summer are really fresh. So a thermal inversion, which is very huge. It's a windy place. I think that the territory here it's strong enough to give a huge impact onto the wines. And we have around 10 hectares of vineyards. We planted them between 2005 and 2006. And so we really started from nothing. This is the truth. We are organic. We are focused on the terroir, as I said, and so this is the reason why we are producing all single variety wines. So what you're going to taste here, it's 100% of Syrah and 100% of Cabernet Franc, but we have a focus also on a Vermentino, on a Sangiovese, so half production is on the autochthonous grape and the other half on the international grapes. focused on France. What I can say is that normally we work a lot in the vineyard and very easily and fast and clean in the cellar. This is why we always try to preserve the impact that the territory here, the environment here is giving onto the wines. And so I think this is the only way for us to make a strong identity wines and to have a difference between a small winery like we are and other big wineries, much more bigger. We know in Tuscany we have a lot of it. So, and this is the reason also why we are focusing on a single grape variety.
Luca, question: what is the farming system in the vineyards?
The farming system is organic and something more than that. So that means that we are using only sulfate and copper. And as we are really lucky for the climate conditions, we stop all the treatments around 2 months before the harvest time. So
wow.
Organic and with a long time of non-intervention work before the harvesting. And I think that it's we could say it's the more natural practice that we are available to do it.
For sure, it helps. It's really important to arrive in cellar, with the grapes in the best shape and without anything on top of it. Another question was more or less about the size of the plots of your vineyard. So talking today, we are going to taste the Syrah and the Cabernet Franc. Are they come from a single vineyard? And how big are the vineyards more or less in terms of hectares?
The vineyards altogether are 10 hectares wide. Okay. And we are able to produce wine from all the small pieces, all the small vineyards that are composing all the 10 hectares. All the 10 hectares are in one body, so are in the same place in Barbiconi, where the estate is. And both the Syrah and Cabernet Franc are a vineyard selection, so are a single grape selection, but a single vineyard selection. So it comes from a part of the vineyard which is extreme in soils like in stone and limestones. This is because it's giving more complexities. It's from the very beginning, the wines, the grapes here are coming different.
Okay, let's taste the wines together. So I will have again the chance to taste your Syrah, and both are 2016. So they, had they are showing in the best condition. They took their time in the bottles, so today they are in the best condition to be presented, I think. The 16 of the Syrah was really impressive, according to me, because it's really deep. It's quite concentrated. They're really well spicy. But what I like is that kind of reduction, which, I mean, it's really well fixed on the wines. It's complex. It has personality and character, but it's also nice when some winemaker wants to prove to do a little bit more. So not just keep the wines really, really fruity and precise and pure, but also when try to do something that will give more complexity. In this case, I think the Syrah was really impressive for this reason. And it was, tasted side by side with other great names in the territory, because Suvereto is one of the area that will have a really nice future, according to winescritic.com. We are in a southern part of Bulgaria area, but there is a little bit more altitude. We are a little bit far away from the sea, but there is the altitude that is not so easy to find in Bulgaria area. And actually the Syrah has this beautiful harmony. It's balanced, but it's quite long. Long not for the quantity of the oak that sometimes the people use to manage the international grape variety, but about the concentration of grapes. So there is a right maturation and all the polyphenolic part are really well combined. How old are the vineyards?
We planted in 2005.
98? Ah, 2005.
Yeah, in the same time. So it's around 16, 17 years.
60, 78 years. So I mean, it's always a good condition for the vineyards to express themselves, because after 5, 6 years, they're really pushing, but also make a noble polyphenolic texture. Okay. And I'm sure they are still tasting in Sofia Wine Bar. You are not imported, right? In US, in New York.
We have an importer in Washington State, but not in the.
See, Ale.
Yeah, we have several importers also here at Sofia, so they were asking, because it seems
same question.
Not imported. Yeah, the same, and more or less the price point also, to understand better the product for the market where we are.
I think we can say it, no, Luca? Chiedono più o meno un po' i prezzi.
This wine is 12 euros and a half export price list, ex-seller.
Bello. Congratulations. I really like it a lot. I think I scored really high. It was the wines I tasted before, maybe one of the craziest name we have in Italy. So I don't want to say, but you can imagine who was. And moving forward, if there are... See, Ale.
Sorry, we have another question also.
Yes.
So the soil layers. Yeah, the soil layers and the pH.
Okay, the soil is called Alberese in Tuscany. So it's, how to say, a very ancient bottom of a sea that was pulled up in ages, and is made of a calcareous settlement that is breaking in tiles that could be big and small and small and small and smaller, composing some scales like this that normally in Tuscany could be also called galestro. And we have a lot of calcium and limestone too. So you can imagine that somewhere you have a really white soil. So the pH, I think it's around, I don't remember exactly the pH index, but I think it's quite normal. I think that more interesting thing is the active limestone that we have inside the soils, which is around at 10% in average. So it's quite a lot to be in the Tuscan coast. Normally we have different soils over there. I think that all our wines has as a common line, a sort of complexity of elegance, of deepness that is carried by the soils, by the thermal inversion that we have during the night in the summer.
Perfect. We perfectly reply to the question in the room. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so moving forward, there is the Cabernet Franc to taste. The Cabernet Franc has this profile ripe, really concentrated again, but it will show all the quality in the tannins and polyphenolic part. So, I mean, they choose to harvest in a perfect moment. And that is actually the wines went out. So I had the pleasure also to read the comment now from Philip, who is connected with us and tasting the wines, if he wants to join, because I think was really an happy news to read this message about the quality of this Cabernet Franc that really touched him. So the Cabernet Franc, I like it because it's ripe with black sherry, with the character also of strawberry, a lots of fruit, much more than the floral part, I would say. But there is still complexity because if you think on the coast, on the Tuscany coast, there are often there is often the opportunity to see a lots of herbal characters, such as also thyme and oregano, and something that really remember you when you go to visit the Tuscany. Philip, are you still with us? Do you want to join the conversation and to make some question for Luca and Francesca? Philip said, my father's nickname was Cabernet Franc, and I have been drinking these wines since a young age. Yours is the best. Quindi sono felicissimo di riportarlo ed è strafelice di assaggiare questo vino, quindi io ancora di più da fare da mediatore. Però se hai piacere, if you are happy, Philip, you can join us and spend 2 minutes with us before Luca and Francesca we leave the conversation. So I'm reading his message in the chat, and I hope also all the people are enjoying this glass of wines like we are doing. Really impressive, Luca. Congratulations. I'm really excited to go to visit your winery with Francesca too, to better understand how you manage the wines, and of course, even more important, how you take care of your vineyards.
Yeah.
I think it's shine. So if there is no question from the other professional in Sofia Wine Bar, I will move into the last part of our virtual tasting with Michele Satta producers. So the idea was, after we tasted Chianti Classico, we started from the continental part in the Tuscany area. From the continental part from Florence, we moved into the Montalcino, who is for sure part of the Siena province. From Siena, we went in Grosseto area, and now we are in Livorno with Suvereto. The next producer is Michele Satta, who is a pioneer in the Bolgheri area. The winery was established in 1983 from Michele Satta. But today we are connected with Giacomo, his son, who is a really talented young winemaker who is making great things in Bolgheri area. Giacomo, how are you?
Ciao, I'm good. What about you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Happy to see you here.
My pleasure.
So we are in your arms. We would like to hear more about the history of Michele Satta, a little bit in the history, but we can focus also on what is going on now, on what you are changing, what is your perception on the wines for the future, of course, in your area. You know, reading your history, there is for sure the focus on Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, which is normally in Bolgheri area, but you always had been one of the first one also to plant a different grape variety and to make one of the best selection of this wine in that area. Because sometimes, you know, it's easy for journalists just to put the fingers in front of you and to say, yes, it's impossible to make a good Sangiovese on the coast, but I think I'm pretty sure you are making in the last years. So it's up to you to explain in 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you everybody to be here and to listening to us today. And I'm happy to share with you some information about my job and where I'm from. I try to be as much quickly as I can. And so Michele Satta is located in Bolgheri. Bolgheri is now a well-known area in the Tuscany coast where we make international wines, more specifically Bordeaux blended varietals. And so Michele Satta, the wines that we are drinking today are two kinds of Bolgheri Superiore. The first, Piastraia, is the classic Bolgheri Superiore you can find in the area. Marianova is my new project with two different varietals than Cabernet Merlot. So the story of Michele Satta is one of the pioneers in the area. And so he is one of the first planting vineyard. My dad used to work also for Ornellaia, so has a long history here. And now I am in charge to lead the winery and to make the wines. So everything about the wines you can ask me. Yes, Michele Satta is one of the first, but was also one of the few still going with the Sangiovese. So today you are going to test two wines, and in both there is a little bit of Sangiovese because we believe that Sangiovese is very classic Tuscany varietals and helps the wine to be fresher and more expressive somehow. We have 25 hectares today. So we are a family business. It's not so big, it's not so small. So it's a medium size also to be in Bolgheri because there are bigger wineries, as you already know probably. And I'm running in an organic way the winery, and I make many different wines. Today I want to be focused only on Bolgheri. And as Raffaele said, I make also 100% Sangiovese that today we are not going to test. And Piastraia is one of the first wine in the area and is a blend of Cabernet, Merlot, and a little bit of Sangiovese, because the idea of my dad was to make Bordeaux varietal, but with a little bit of Sangiovese, in the same way of Grattamacco at the beginning, in the same way of Paleo at the beginning, because Paleo in the 90s used to be a blend with a little bit of Sangiovese. So in that period in the 90s, there was the idea to make Bordeaux varietals with a 10 or 20% of Sangiovese. Then Bolgheri moved to completely Bordeaux style, so Cab Franc, Cab Sauvignon, and Merlot. And my dad wanted to keep going with the Sangiovese a little bit, the same of Grattamacco winery, actually. And so Piastraia is my best selection of Cabernet Sauvignon. I don't work with any Cab Franc, but 2022 will be the first vintage where I will pick up a little bit of Cab Franc because I'm very curious to work with Cab Franc. Climate change allowed us to make a little bit riper Cab Franc, maybe now. So I am more comfortable with Cabernet Franc now because of the ripening that is less green and more expressive, in my opinion. And so it's Cabernet Merlot and a little bit of Sangiovese, and is aged for 18 months in barriques, 30% new oak. And actually is 1/3 new passage, second and third passage in equal parts. Because I want to manage the wood, I don't want to make too much woody wine, even if I'm really studying the woods. I'm really studying the way to use new oak, avoiding the feelings of vanilla and new oak too much. But this is the 19 vintage, which I find very expressive, very extrovert, because 19 has been very, a vintage, in my opinion, now easy to drink without losing any complexity. So it's very enjoyable right now. And this is the classic blend of Bolgheri with a touch of personality with Sangiovese. So this is Piastraia. Raffaele, I keep going with Marianova?
Yes, absolutely. We can taste together.
Okay, we taste together.
Alessandra helped us. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. You know, they are tasting in Sofia Wine Bar, and it's important to show the label more for our professional from Miami. In meantime, Alessandra poured all the wines already for the professional. They are discussing a little bit. Piastraia, it's always, you know, as character because there are some vintages in which I think I really liked it, but you cannot understand from the beginning. And there are other vintages in which you really can understand the complexity, the idea that there is behind the wines, and you already know where it will go. So this is actually kind of personality for me in the wines. These are wines that speak to you. And the Piastraia is for sure one of these. The 2019 vintage is actually one of these vintage where you need to wait a little bit more the wines, I think, even if it's already approachable. I think it will show even better when it will manage the bottle and in a few 2 or 3 years. Marianova, you already know what I think. It's so hard to manage both the grape variety and to play with them in that kind of blend, which is something insane and terrific at the same time. Tasting Piastraia, what I really like it is the kind of herbal character again. I mean, the 3 wineries we tasted from the Tuscan, the coast, are actually more involved in this characteristic of floral and herbal character, which is not so easy to find in the continental wine. So it's a little bit more intriguing, like we said also with Javier.
Yep, my idea of Piastraia is to represent Bulgari potential in the future, you said. And I always try to work avoiding the alcohol in the last part of the mouth. So Sangiovese helps me in that way. And I do not pick up any fruit to overripe or over alcoholic potential because first of all, I don't like them. I try to make an Italian wine, and so in that part of Tuscany, in general, in Tuscany, we are lucky because we can make elegant wines, and so I want to keep this feature of Tuscany. So not too much body, not too much alcohol, not layers and layers and layers, but something you can enjoy. So this is very important to me in the winemaking, and also in my personal wine drinking, in my personal taste.
Perfect. So moving into the tasting of Marianova, Giacomo, could you please repeat us what is the blend, when it was born, and how did you have this idea? I mean, it's your label, you decided with Michele, with your father? Yes, more or less this question for you.
Marianova is my personal project because yeah, because my dad always did 100% Sangiovese and 100% Syrah, 2 different wines, and they both are IGT because 100% Sangiovese and 100% Syrah are not allowed in the Bulgari DOC. So those were the wines that my father loved most in the winery, and me too. Actually, I was very. I believe Syrah is very interesting, is very challenging, but very. I really like Syrah, and so my idea were to come back in the denomination with these 2 varietals, putting them together, and I saw in my experience that Sangiovese and Syrah together are more. There is more complexity than separately. So I was very interested by this idea, and the first vintage was 2015, just a vintage that very few bottles I just present to the market and to some journalists, and then from 16 vintage I started making more bottle for the market. Yes, this is a different idea of Bulgari because everyone is used to drink Cabernet and Merlot from Bulgari, more structured wines, more, as I said before, layers, more concentration. Through Marianova, I look for the best elegance I can in this area. So with these 2 varietals, I vinify with whole grapes 30% and long maceration just to look for the perfect balance between the skins and the wine. And in that way, I can express all the Mediterranean features of these two wines together, these wines and the elegance. So different project, different idea, are two different faces of Bulgari, and I'm enjoying just showing both of these faces.
When it was the first vintage of Marianova, Giacomo?
2015, yeah.
Since then, you have always produced, right? The 16, 17.
16, 17, 18, 19, the 20, as I said, they told you I was not happy about the aging process, and so I decided to put in Piastraia. And 21, yes, is very, very good actually. So yeah, is a project.
So we can say you have the idea to go out on the market only when the wines is exactly what you thought from the beginning.
Yeah, of course. Yes, the price is high, so it's important to keep the quality very high.
Okay, thank you very much. I think maybe we have the last question from you, from our professional in Sofia Wine Bar.
Grazie, Raffa. Over here now we are less shy with all these wines, so they started to really speak and compare, and we have wine lover, but we have a lot of importers and many wine director of restaurant and hotel in New York, and they really appreciate to have two wines from Bulgari, so different, so valuable, and also to see how is the result from a Sangiovese grapes and Syrah in Bulgari area that is quite rare, especially here. So thank you so much for providing those, and Rafa, thanks to you because they really appreciate all the wineries. So thanks for the selection. It was really great.
Thank you very much. So I have the last question for you, Giacomo, and then I will leave you, just to be precise also in time of what we said to our professional. How do you choose in the last period to use a lot of cement, concrete? Do you experiment with the tava? Do you like to work better on the white grapes, on white wines on the tava system, or do you like even how they open the wines in the red berries?
Both. I would say both, because first of all, my experience is very little, because I need more vintages on my shoulder. But what I saw is that I work with many varietals, and so I need to find the right shirt for everyone I'm making now. So for Tava, for example, I saw is very interesting. The amphora is very interesting in the vinification of Viognier. I do make 100% Viognier, which is fantastic, the result, even the cement. In the same way, you can age and vinify also Sangiovese and Syrah in these two materials, because they respect the aromatic part of both Sangiovese and Syrah. For Cabernet Merlot, for example, I'm much more interested in using woods, barriques. So I experiment a little bit, but I know very well what varietals can improve in amphora and concrete, and those who cannot. So I have these three varietals that can be very good in amphora and concrete, and they are actually. They are. I've been in Bordeaux. They are using Tava amphora, for example, but the result, especially on Merlot, is not so interesting in the aging. I mean, so for the vinification is another story. But in the aging process, those varietals ask for wood. That's my personal taste.
Thank you very much, Giacomo, to explain us better and to share with us your knowledge on the future also of the wines that you are making using a concrete and tava. Once again, thank you very much to you and to all the producers who participate today. I'm really happy to see you again in a virtual way, but I hope to let's go all together to bring the Italian wines and to explain them directly on the place. So next time, I'm pretty sure we are going to present wines in person in New York. So
we're looking forward, Raf. We're waiting for you and the producers.
That's a really beautiful table, and you were perfect today, guys. Thank you very much. I mean, it was not so easy to have all of you connected, to be on the screen and to really work properly to taste the wines. Thank you very much. Thank you. And nothing. Bye, Giacomo. Grazie. C'è ancora Javier. Thank you very much, Javier, to be with us. I want to say bye to Paolo, who was connected from the beginning. Guido, happy to see you again, even if he's just in virtual. And I'm pretty sure I'm, how do you say, dimenticando qualcuno? I'm pretty sure I am not saying bye to everyone, but I hope to see you again really soon, to everyone. Grazie alla Fralluca, was the first time I met them. Ciao Francesca, ciao Luca, e see you soon.
Bye, ciao.
Bye, ciao. Grazie mille. Ciao Antonio, grazie. Leo, grazie mille.
Faccio un applauso da Sofia. Grazie.
Ciao ragazzi.
Ciao.
Thank you very much. Continuate ad assaggiare grandi vini.
Sì, keep going. So keep going. Ciao Raf, grazie.
Have a nice day. Bye. Allora, chiudiamo il collegamento. Grazie Leo, grazie mille. Com'è andata Leo a distanza? Ma ci ha salutati Leo. Allora rimaniamo noi. Registrazione.